Aloha class. So now we are on problem 8, and so they've given us ROI, sales, margin, and minimum required rate of return. So they're asking for what is turnover. So we should probably start with this bottom formula. ROI equals 20% or 0.2, and then margin was 5% or 0.05, and then turnover we don't know, so we'll multiply that, or turnover we don't know. So 5% times by a number, not necessarily a percentage or a dollar. So turnover is just a number, not percentage or dollar. Margin times by turnover, so 5% times by something would give me 20%. So hopefully you can solve that one in your head, but 5% times by 4 would give us 20%. But just to make sure, you want to isolate your turnover by itself. So you would divide margin over here and also divide it beneath your ROI. So you do 20% or 0.2 divided by 0.05. And so turnover is going to equal 4. So remember, ROI equals margin times turnover. You're going to divide your 5% over here and then divide it over here. So I did 20% divided by 5% gives me 4 turnover. So turnover is equal to 4 net operating income. So I do have margin, which was 5%, and then net operating income I don't know, but sales I do know, which was 800,000. So again, in order to try to isolate into the net operating income, I don't know my net operating income on the numerator, but I can multiply my 800,000 times by 5%, and that'll give me my net operating income. So I'll do 800,000 times by 5%, and so I have 40,000 net operating income, and I can double check that if I wanted to. 40,000 divided by 800,000 would give me 5% margin, and so my net operating income would have to equal 40,000. What is average operating assets? So we could use this one, we could use our ROI, we could use our turnover, because we do have turnover. So turnover was 4, sales 800,000, and I don't know average operating assets. So in order to isolate your average operating assets, you would multiply it over here by your turnover, and then you would need to divide your turnover under here. So average operating assets would equal sales divided by turnover. So in order to isolate it, you would have to multiply the average operating assets over here. So multiply it by the turnover and then divide the turnover, sales divided by turnover. So I would do 800,000 sales divided by turnover, which is 4. So I have 200,000 in average operating assets. 200,000. And then I could just double check that just to make sure. If NOI is 40,000 and average operating assets is 200,000, am I going to get the ROI that they told me, which was 20%? So 40 divided by 200, I do come out to 20%, so it looks like I did solve for these ones, or at least AOA correctly, 200,000. And then residual income, I don't have the formula for residual income here, but residual income equals net operating income minus your average operating assets multiplied by the minimum required rate of return. So minimum required rate of return from the problem was 16%. NOI was 40,000. NOI 40,000. And then we want to do the parentheses first, so I'll minus over here, and then parentheses, which was AOA 200,000. 200,000, oh, let's do a formula, equals 200,000 multiplied by 16%, minimum required rate of return. So now we have our net operating income, and we'll deduct our AOA multiplied by 16% minimum required rate of return. And so our residual income, our residual income would be 8,000. Yep, so definitely with this one, solve for the unknown. and you'll have to work backwards sometimes. So manipulating the formula AOA equals sales divided by turnover.